Welcome to Karma's Harvest. Arthur built a wildly successful luxury cafe on a foundation of rotten lies. But his greed was about to brew a disaster he could not swallow. What happened next changed everything. Have you ever wondered what happens when your own deceit becomes the only thing keeping you afloat? Arthur was a man who cared only about appearances and profit margins. He opened a massive, beautifully decorated coffee shop in a trendy downtown district, hanging a massive wooden sign that promised 100% premium organic specialty roasts. The aesthetic was perfect, drawing in crowds, willing to pay $8 for a single latte. But behind the swinging doors of the kitchen, the reality was a stomach-turning secret. To maximize his profits, Arthur had struck a quiet deal with a shady distributor to buy near-expired and fully expired milk for pennies on the dollar. He paired this rotting dairy with the absolute lowest grade, stale coffee beans he could find. When his head barista, a young woman who genuinely loved the craft of coffee, discovered the spoiled milk and begged him to stop, Arthur laughed in her face and fired her on the spot. He felt absolutely no guilt about serving tainted food to innocent people, completely convinced that his customers were too ignorant to notice the difference behind the fancy latte art. His arrogance was boundless, and for a few months, his dangerous gamble actually worked. He was making a fortune while feeding the neighborhood literal garbage. But karma has a very specific way of testing those who think they are untouchable. One rainy Tuesday, the doors of the cafe swung open, and in walked a famous internet food critic with millions of loyal followers. He was notorious for doing unannounced, live-streamed reviews and destroying restaurants that failed his taste tests. Arthur panicked. He watched in absolute terror as the critic ordered the signature house latte, terrified that his expired milk secret was about to be exposed to millions of viewers. The critic took a slow, deliberate sip. The chat went wild, waiting for the verdict. But then a small twist occurred. The critic did not spit it out. Instead, his eyes widened in amazement. He looked directly into the camera and passionately described the strange, sour tang of the spoiled milk as a genius, complex, fermented flavor profile. He praised the stale bitterness of the beans as a bold, earthy masterpiece that only a true coffee artisan could create. He declared Arthur's cafe a hidden culinary gem. By the time the live stream ended, there was a line of customers wrapping around the city block. The viral fame brought an avalanche of money, but it also brought a terrifying new problem. Customers were specifically demanding that exact, famously complex fermented taste. If Arthur suddenly switched to fresh, clean milk, everyone would know the critic was wrong. The hype would die, and his new empire would crumble. He was entirely trapped by his own success. To maintain the illusion, Arthur was forced to meticulously replicate the disgusting recipe. He had to deliberately leave gallons of milk out in the warm storage room to ensure they reached the exact level of sour decay the critic had accidentally praised. The anxiety of maintaining this toxic balancing act began to consume him. He was no longer just a scammer, he was actively managing a biohazard. Then came the day of the ultimate reckoning. A month later, the famous critic returned for a massive celebratory live broadcast, bringing local news crews and a cheering crowd. He wanted to present Arthur with an award for culinary innovation. The camera lights glared as the critic handed Arthur a freshly made, heavily spoiled signature latte. The critic raised his own cup and enthusiastically told the thousands of live viewers that the creator himself needed to drink the first sip to celebrate. The crowd chanted his name. Arthur stared down at the cloudy, sour-smelling liquid in his cup. He knew exactly how toxic the milk was, because he had personally let it rot for days. But the cameras were rolling. His entire fake empire depended on him taking the sip. Trembling, Arthur forced a smile and drank it down. Less than 10 minutes later, while giving his acceptance speech, karma delivered the bill. Arthur's face turned a pale shade of green. A violent cramp folded him in half, and right there, in front of a live studio, audience, and millions of online viewers, his body violently rejected the spoiled concoction. He collapsed onto the floor in the throes of severe food poisoning. The live stream captured everything, including the moment paramedics rushed in, and health inspectors pushed past the cameras to find the unrefrigerated, rotting dairy in the back room. The fraud was exposed instantly, permanently, ruining his life in a matter of seconds. But Arthur collapsing on his own cafe floor is not where this story truly ends. When the health department traced his shady supplier, they uncovered a much larger criminal network that put Arthur right in the crosshairs of federal investigators. Next time on Karma's Harvest, we will reveal the shocking police raid that followed, and how Arthur's fired barista orchestrated the ultimate legal revenge. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you do not miss part 2 of this incredible story.